What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to the channel. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. It's Monday, so let's go ahead and get down. And I want to talk about the United States forces actually capturing the former president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, and they also snatched up his wife, Cilia Flores, in the wee hours of the morning, approximately around 1:01 a.m. at his residence in Caracas. I guess I'm pronouncing it right. If I'm not, it is what it is today. Now, for clearer context, this actually took place on January the 3rd. So after Maduro and his wife were completely stunned and taken by U.S. authorities, they were actually flown by helicopter to a United States Southern warship that was located in the Caribbean. From there, they were actually transported to New York that evening, landing at Stewart National Guard Base, but they were ultimately moved to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Now, they both are facing charges. In fact, they were indicted in the Southern District of New York on charges of narco-terrorism, Coca-Cola importation, I'm paraphrasing there, conspiracy, and weapon offenses. Now, what I want to do right here is insert this news clip, and then I'll be back.
Despite months of threats and military buildup, the US strikes on Venezuela and capture of President Maduro and his wife are a significant escalation on what some had expected. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, has been analysing what we know so far about the stunning military operation.
The operation to topple Nicolás Maduro, the dictator of Venezuela, began in the early hours after days of waiting for the right weather. The US issued aviation warnings for a huge amount of airspace across the whole of the country and far out to sea. Then the airstrikes began. Witnessed in Caracas, the capital, but at the port of La Guaira and the regions of Miranda and Aragua as well. Explosions in Caracas lit up the night sky, but the silhouettes of helicopters believed to be American can also be seen crossing the picture. This footage shows the size of the explosion at the port of La Guaira. And further east at the airport of La Higuerote, yet more spectacular pyrotechnics.
Now, not only did the U.S. capture Maduro and his wife, they conducted a series of military strikes. So this was a pretty serious ordeal that has sparked a lot of conversation all over social media. Now, Trump has warned Maduro on several occasions in the past, citing that he was nothing more and nothing less but a kingpin. And also, they said that he was cooperating with terrorists that had criminal elements, and his regime role is regional instability. So they've been on him for quite some time. And as a matter of fact, it's being reported that a week before they captured Maduro and his wife, Trump tried to have a conversation with him to get him to surrender, and he declined. Now, Trump said this back in October of 2025.
Offering mediation. What should we do to stop that?
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to f around with the United States.
Now, ever since the capture of Maduro and his wife, there has been several countries that ain't feeling that shit whatsoever, like Russia, China, Cuba, Iran, and Turkey. They're not feeling it. They feel like Trump overstepped his boundaries. A lot of people feel that way, right? Now, what's interesting about this dynamic is that the president of Colombia spoke out against Trump and denounced his actions, and he didn't mince his words one bit. So I'm going to play a little bit of what he had to say, and then I'm going to play what Trump had to say in response, and then I'll be back.
Pedófilos quiere acabar en Colombia. ¿Duro? Sí. El gobierno de Venezuela ha hecho muchas críticas, pero no me burlo del pueblo de Venezuela ni construyo una trampa para que caiga el pueblo de Venezuela en la trampa de una invasión que solo va por su petróleo. Que se quiere es codicia y violencia más para hacer de esta esquina hermosa del continente suramericano una Siria, un Irak, una Libia llena de esclavos, de venta de esclavos de nuevo negros. No. La lista de los amigos de Stein que no quiere que aparezca la lista en los Estados Unidos.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, he said he's got to watch his ass. And today he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So just what your message is about that. Well, he
has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
All right, so you just saw the Colombian president Petro talk about Donald Trump is just stalling because he doesn't want the Epstein files to come out. He also went on to say that America just wants Venezuela's resources when it comes to their oil. Now, Kamala said the same thing on X, and she started off by saying Donald Trump's actions in Venezuela do not make America safer, stronger, or more affordable. That Maduro is a brutal, illegitimate dictator does not change the fact that this action was both unlawful and unwise. We've seen this movie before. Wars for regime change oil and that are sold as strength but turns into chaos, and American families pay the price. The American people do not want this, and they are tired of being lied to. This is not about drugs or democracy. It's about oil and Donald Trump's desire to play the regional strongman. If he cared about either, he wouldn't have pardoned a convicted drug trafficker or sidelined Venezuela's legitimate opposition while pursuing deals with Maduro's cronies. The president is putting troops at risk, spending billions, destabilizing a region, and offering no legal authority, no exit plan, and no benefit at home. America needs leadership whose priorities are lowering costs for working families, enforcing the rule of law, strengthening alliances, and most importantly, putting the American people first. Now, a popular response as it pertains to what Kamala had to say comes from an account on X that goes by Pro-America Politics and Mark, and he said, "Why do you always have to oppose Trump even when he does something that is obviously good for the country and good for the world? Why can't you say, you know, I usually disagree with this guy, but in this case I agree with him, and this was a good move for our country. The Democrats stand for nothing other than the opposite of whatever Trump says or does, pathetic and infantile." Now, there were also a lot of critics that were getting on Kamala because they pointed out the fact that Kamala and Biden had a $25 million bounty on this same individual in Maduro. So the fact that Trump actually caught this guy is kind of hypocritical in their mind for you to call out Trump for what he did. Now, what really has people on the edge of their seats and on their toes is the fact that people feel that a war is inevitable at this particular point in time. It's gonna happen. You might as well get prepared, and so forth and so on. And I think it's really disheartening for a lot of Americans to have to logically think about a war when they can't financially pay for their groceries and their bills and things of that nature. I was in the store yesterday and I was looking at a bag of Doritos and it was $7. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, wow, just a bag of Doritos was $7. And now a lot of people feel like this action right here is going to have a trickle down effect, and other countries will potentially band together to come against the US. But anyway, what I want to do right here is leave you guys with this clip where this woman breaks down the tension between US and Venezuela as it pertains to the oil. She did a fantastic job. It's the best one that I've seen, and I think that it's extremely educational. So if you have the time and the patience, it is about 8 minutes long, but it is definitely worth paying attention to and grabbing this information because I believe it's vital to what's going on right now. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to like the video. Also share it, all right? And drop down in the comments and give me your thoughts. Have a beautiful day.
Want to learn about Venezuela? I'm getting the board. Whoever said teaching wasn't physical. All right, people want to know about what's going on between the United States and Venezuela, but in order to understand what's going on today, you need to understand what has gone on before. That's why history is so important, guys. Come on. Venezuela and the US. I've decided to do this chronologically because I feel like doing history metaphorically difficult. Number one, pre-1998. Pre-1998, Venezuela had a huge oil supply, actually, biggest in the world, and the biggest stakeholder was a US company called Exxon. Why is this important? Because of their huge oil supply in Venezuela, Exxon took it over. So the vast amount of profit, the percentage of profit went to the US, and Venezuela as a country got next to nothing. And because of this, their economy started to fail. And as their economy started to fail, guess what? A dictator waiting in the wings wanted to jump in and save themselves from God knows who. Oh, from the United States. How do I get steak and oil companies is taking over the entire world? Number two, 1998. That's not right. I hate it when I can't write numbers properly. Hugo Chavez was a democratically elected president of Venezuela. Now, once he got in, again I say democratically, he started to push towards authoritarianism, and he started reducing the checks and balances of the democratic system. Side point, does that remind you of anybody else? He also started to rewrite the Constitution to solidify his dictatorial power. Parallels are really uncanny. 2002, a woman named Maria Machado, ignore how I said that, but keep that name locked in your head because she's going to be important later, created an organization called SUMAT in order to overthrow the Chavez government.
Psst, who do you think was funding her operation?
You guessed it. George W. Bush, President of the United States at the time, was funding her through the National Endowment of Democracy. You know what? People just make up names to mean anything nowadays. So through this National Endowment for Democracy, the United States funded Machado in order to overthrow Chavez. And when it didn't work, Bush said, "Not my problem, I didn't know anything about it." And she was eliminated from all political life going forward. And then, in 2002, Bush was a very busy guy. Number 4, in 2007, Chavez, reinvigorated with power and an authoritarian regime, decides to nationalize Venezuelan oil. Ruh-roh. That meant that Venezuela took all of Exxon's money, all their oil, and all their access to oil, and shifted the lion's share of profits back to Venezuela and left Exxon, well, not a lot of money. P.S. Exxon then sued and won $1.4 billion in a claim. But what kind of international police force are we going to get for Venezuela to be forced to pay Exxon? None. After that huge shift of economic power, Venezuelan oil dropped from 3 million barrels a day way down to 700,000 barrels a day due to corruption and, let's be honest, informal sanctions put on them by the United States because they just stole a bunch of their money from corporations. Stole might be a US word, considering the oil was on Venezuelan land and considered a Venezuelan resource, but who's counting? The US really does imperialism out of 10, don't they? Ooh, new chalk. Number 5, a guy named Maduro, used to be the VP of Chavez, takes over, and he starts building an even stronger authoritarian government. I forgot the year. 2013. Obama calls the drug cartel and this particular regime a threat to democracy and national security of the United States. That's then followed by Trump putting on economic sanctions in 2017. Are you with me so far? This is about to get interesting. Interesting, I mean even more corrupt. 6, 2025. I brought you right up to the present. Maria Machado, remember I told you to remember that name, wins the Nobel Peace Prize. And who does she dedicate it to? None other than Donald Trump. And it's at this point that Donald Trump begins attacking boats, Venezuelan boats, calling them drug cartels, talking about revitalizing and restoring democracy to Venezuela, and talking about how they're a threat to national security. And guess what? The US gotta go in and save some people. Oh, and P.S. Donald Trump wants his oil back. It's the ending that's really gonna get ya. The big question about why Donald Trump is doing this is why, and I think the answer is gonna surprise you a little bit. Number 1, he is going to claim that he is going to liberate Venezuela. Guys, always be careful when the United States of America liberates anything, because usually it means they're going to take it. And he's going to install Maria as the president, formally excommunicated from all political life, but she's going to serve a purpose. Number 2, Machado will then give oil rights back to, you guessed it, Exxon. 80% goes to them, 20% back to Venezuela. Everybody's happy and a new power is installed, but that's not the only reason this is happening. This last one's gonna blow you away. Number 3. is it about oil? Absolutely. They want control of the world's biggest oil supply, but that's not the full answer. What the real answer is U.S. currency rates. Follow along, this gets tricky. Oil has always been traded in U.S. dollars, called petrol. And what that has served the United States in doing is solidifying, is stabilizing, is increasing U.S. dollars. Because if anybody wants to buy oil anywhere in the world, they have to use U.S. currency. It artificially inflates the price of the U.S. dollar and stabilizes the U.S. economy. This is the real problem. Because what Trump and the United States is really afraid of are BRICS nations. What are they? They are nations, they are countries that have gotten together and are starting to trade without the United States, especially oil, and not use the US currency as their trading denomination. And that is going to possibly submarine the US economy. So is it about oil? Sure, but what really it's about is about the United States being able to control the entire market of trade when it comes to oil, thus inflating and propping up the US economy. So when somebody says, is it about the oil? Say sure, but that's just a vehicle for them to control everything else.
Tough News TV, we out.